Welcome back. You're watching ED Insight. The government has made investment in back-end a precondition to foreign ownership of multi-brand stores. For good reason. India's supply chain infrastructure is in a shambles, suffering from both middlemen and wastage. Foreign investment then can help solve both these problems. Nikhil Sivadas tells you how.
India's organized retail loses nearly 10,000 crore rupees or $2 billion of food annually on account of wastage. That's according to a report by rating agency CRISIL. The wastage is highest in the perishable products category, which includes fruits, vegetables, fish, meat and poultry. And nearly all of this wastage is avoidable. According to CRISIL, retailers lose 15% at the farm level and another 25% during transportation. That's primarily because goods change several hands before they reach their final destination.
Farmers sell to wholesalers, wholesalers sell to intermediaries, intermediaries then to sell to mandis, and finally in the end it comes to retailers from where consumers currently buy. Products change hands 4 or 5 times. There is no value addition which happens at any level.
Let's first address the problem in farming. A white paper by the DIPP noted that Indian farmers realize only 1/3 of the total price paid by the final consumer, as against 2/3 by farmers in nations with a higher share of organized retail. According to a study conducted by ICRIER, a farmer growing cauliflowers using the traditional value chain with more intermediaries has a cost of production of 29,400 rupees per acre and makes a profit of 3 rupees and 88 paisa per flower sold. In comparison, the farmer supplying to an organized retailer makes a profit of 5 rupees and 90 paisa per flower sold, despite a higher cost of production of 30,825 rupees per acre. The increase in profit is attributed to the decrease in the number of intermediaries in the supply chain. Retailers are waking up to this reality and believe that FDI will push for a leaner supply system, as reports suggest that direct purchasing from farmers could reduce supply chain costs by about 10 to 15%. That's because foreign retail practices ensure that farmers supplying directly to large retailers receive timely agricultural extension services, international level benchmark practices in sorting, grading and efficient packaging at the source level.
By bringing these investments into the back end, by setting up warehouses, accumulation centers where they look at staples and fruits and vegetables, they will build more of a robust network outside of the top few cities, which will allow FMCG companies also to reach the consumer much more effectively.
Farm to fork is any retailer's dream because goods can be procured at much cheaper rates. Let's now move on to the problem with warehousing and transportation. India produces about 180 million tons of fruits and vegetables, but it has just 5,386 standalone cold storages, with a total capacity of just 23.6 million tons. To make matters worse, 80% of this is used only for potatoes. According to Deloitte, improved transportation fleets, refrigerated vans and pre-cooling chambers can bring down wastage by about 40%.
Due to inefficiency in infrastructure, there is an opportunity loss of GDP of up to about $200 billion. Yeah? If we take fiscal 2017, going forward.
In essence, right now, India is a bunch of go-downs and transport operators, essentially. There is no true blue Indian logistics provider.
Most of the problems arise because farms are not adequately linked to markets. One way out of this mess would be to source goods locally, and that's something foreign players may have a head start on. Global retailers, as a rule, find it convenient to source supplies of fresh agricultural produce locally and from farmers, reducing the number of middlemen involved. Walmart, for example, in 2010 doubled the amount of locally sourced produce on its shelves, cutting on costs by reducing the distance between the point of production and distribution and reducing the company's logistics and supply chain costs. A similar infusion of foreign investments in back-end infrastructure and supply chain management in India would bring the market closer to the farmer's doorstep.
100% FDI in supply chain infrastructure and back-end has been allowed for the last several years. And not only has it been allowed, it's also accompanied by a lot of subs from the government of India. The moot question is then, why has there been no investment? I think the answer is very simple. It's almost like a chicken and egg issue. No supply chain international logistic provider, supply chain warehouse manager or a cold chain company would want to invest into India, into the back end, large sums of money, until they have an assurance that there's going to be a front end which is actually going to make use of their infrastructure. And that is why the FDI in retail makes a lot of sense.
Indian retailers also don't have the technical know-how of managing their inventory efficiently. A Technopack analysis states that Indian retailers stocked up to 3 times more inventory compared to international retailers, leaving behind a pile of stock unattended. And so there's a big need for FDI in supply chain management.
Indian businessmen, business houses, if I may use the word of the 50s and 60s and 70s, somehow ignored the opportunity of an efficient retail system. As a result of that, today, when you see the scale and size of theirs is very, very small compared to the overall consumption in India and compared to the challenges in India. To this extent, yes, we do require international capital and international know-how to now come to India, simply because the inefficiency of the supply chain in particular is actually hurting hundreds of millions of Indians more than anybody else.
Indeed it does, because apart from wastage, Indian retailers are also saddled with shrinkage costs like employee thefts, vendor frauds, administrative errors and shoplifting that have a significant impact on sales and profitability. India has 3.5 to 4% of sales shrinkage costs versus the global benchmark of 1 to 2% of sales. In addition, global partners can help them optimize costs and give them access to better technology in retail management.
One thing to highlight is many times it's not that the direct retailer himself or themselves actually make some of these investments. It's typically setting up the entire ecosystem which invests in this infrastructure. So you may actually have a situation where it's not a Walmart or a Carrefour or a Tesco who directly is investing in that infrastructure, but you actually have other players investing in the infrastructure because they have assured contracts or guarantees from these retailers.
The Planning Commission has stated that India needs nearly 64,000 crore rupees as investments in agricultural infrastructure. That money cannot come from domestic sources, and so the need to lure foreign investors. If India is serious about controlling inflation, FDI is the ideal solution to do away with systemic inefficiencies. All that is required now is political will and determination.
Well, that's all in this edition of ET Insight. We'll be back next week, but until then, don't forget to write in with your feedback and suggestions. Thanks so much for watching.